introduce you what exactly we mean by inverse trigonometric function. At least you know about trigonometric functions, like say sine theta is a trigonometric function, for where theta is any real number. And then we say that the domain of trigonometric function is set of real number. And the values of like sine theta, or for that sake cos theta, if I denote it by x, x is equal to cos theta, or say in case of sine theta, what is the range? The value of sine theta and cos theta lie between -1 to 1. That is the range. So we already know about the trigonometric function. Theta could be any real number, and the values of sine theta, cos theta, tan theta lie in a particular. Like for example, tan theta lies between -infinity to infinity. Of course, we can't take equal to infinity. That is the range of tan theta. So now, with this particular background, let me introduce you a new functions. The new function, that is inverse trigonometric functions. Inverse trigonometric functions. Say for example, sine inverse x, where in case of sine inverse x, x lies in the interval, closed interval, -1 to 1, and that is known as domain of sine inverse x. What do you mean by sine inverse x? Sine inverse x is an angle. Please note, it is an angle, say we denoted by theta, such that, or implies and implied by, sine inverse x is an angle theta. Which angle theta? What is that angle theta? Whose sine is x, such that x is equal to sine theta. Already I discussed with you what is the domain of sine inverse x, that is what is the value of x. The x may be anything between any number, real number, between -1 to 1. And what about theta? Earlier, when we defined sine theta, you know, the theta is any real number, but in this case, we'll discuss that whether theta is any real number or there is some problem with it. That we'll discuss slightly later. At present, let me take few examples to further discuss about sine inverse x. For example, what is sine inverse half? As per definition, sine inverse is an angle such that sine theta is half. So at least you know in the first quadrant sine is positive. What is that angle whose sine is half? It is 30 degree or pi/6. So we can safely say that sine inverse half is pi/6 or 30 degree. Similarly, if you have understood the definition, can you tell me what will be cos inverse 1/√2? How do you define cos inverse x? Like with the same symbols, if I say cos inverse x is theta, provided x is equal to cos theta. What do you mean by cos inverse x? What is that angle? Cos inverse x is an angle whose cos is x. So when you say cos inverse 1/√2, so it is an angle such that cos theta is 1/√2. So what is that angle whose cos is 1/√2? There may be many more, but at least pi/4 is there. So you can say the cos inverse 1/√2 is pi/4, because cos pi/4 is 1/√2. Similarly, if I take one example for tan inverse x, what will be tan inverse √3? Can you directly tell me? What do you mean by tan inverse √3? Tan inverse √3 is an angle whose value of tan theta is √3. What is that angle? You know, tan 60 degrees √3 or pi/3. So tan inverse pi/3 is √3. So tan inverse √3 is pi/3. Because tan pi/3 is √3. So tan inverse of √3 is pi by 3. So that's how I have introduced you the new functions, that is sine inverse x, cos inverse x, tan inverse x, and likewise the rest 3 sec inverse, cosec inverse, cot inverse may be defined. And I have taken here few examples. Now please note here, make a note that sine inverse x has nothing to do with sine x to the power minus 1. That is, it is not an exponent sign. It is not this, because otherwise, in general, suppose I write somewhere x to the power negative 1, that means 1 by x. If I write sine square x, that means sine x whole square. But in this particular discussion, sine inverse x, it is not sine x to the power minus 1 or 1 by sine x. It is not that. The idea out here is totally different, that sine inverse x is an angle, so theta say, such that sine theta equal to x. Have you understood? Now, let me discuss, as I told you in the beginning, that here, when I say sine inverse x, look here, when I ask you the value of sine inverse half, and I told you that at least in the first quadrant we know it is 30 degree or pi by 6. And here I put a question mark that theta, the range of sine inverse x should be any, because we can find the value of sine theta. Theta is any real number when we discuss trigonometric functions. Sine theta, theta is any real number. But is the converse true? When I say sine inverse x, where x is a real number, between negative 1 to 1. So there may be many angles. Let's see this, whose value of sine is half. So how to tackle this problem? First of all, let me pose the problem in front of you. Before, why we are doing so? Just to decide what is the range of inverse functions. What do you mean by this? So let us see some. You let me know the value of sine theta when theta is 30 degree or pi by 6 or maybe 150 degree or say 390 degree or negative 210 degree or negative 330 degree. Let us find out the value of sine theta for these angles. Clearly, you know sine 30 or pi by 6 is half. What about sine 150 degree? How do you work out? 150 degrees in the second quadrant, so it should be written as 180 minus 30, and sine in the second quadrant is positive. So sine 180 minus alpha is sine alpha, that is sine 30. So the value of sine 150 is how much? Value of sine 150 is also half. Let us work out the value of sine 390 degree. How do you take 390 degree? 390 degree is more than 360. So it should be 360 plus 30. And you know sine 360 plus 30 is also sine 30. So that is half. Let me take one such negative angle, say minus 210 degree. Work out the value of sine minus 210. First of all, sine in the fourth quadrant is negative. Sine of minus theta is minus sine theta. So it will be minus 210 degrees. And now, how do you find the value of sine 210? 210 being in the third quadrant, you rewrite it as 180 plus 30. And in the third quadrant also the value of sine is negative. So it will be negative, negative, positive, sine 30 degree. Sine 180 plus 30 is minus sine 30, and one negative sign is already there. So it will be plus sine 30, that is half. What all I have done by now, just see. Look at it now. Just look at these angles, whether the angle is 30 degree or 150 degree or 390 degree, maybe minus 210 degree or minus 330 degree. This is the value of theta. And what is the value of sine theta? In all such cases, what is the value of x equal to sine theta? The values of sine theta when theta is there. In all such cases, the value of sine theta is half. Do you understand what I am trying to tell you? Now take the reverse situation. Look at the reverse situation. Here you are given theta, the value of sine theta for all these angles, the value is half. Now take the reverse situation. Suppose you got to find the value of sine inverse half. Here it is half. What do you mean by sine inverse half? By sine inverse half you mean what is that angle whose sine is half. So just now you have seen it could be 30 degree, maybe 150 degree, maybe 390 degree, or maybe minus 210 degree. So there are so many angles whose sine is half, or in other words sine inverse half may be equal to 30 degree, 150 degree, 390 degree. So is sine inverse x a function that way? What do you mean by function? How do you define function? F is a function, say sine inverse f x is a function such that to each value of x there corresponds a unique value of sine inverse x. But here to one value say half, sine inverse half assumes many different values. So should we take that sine inverse x is, or for that sake cos inverse x and similarly tan inverse x, they are not functions. They are functions, but we have to confine the value of sine inverse x in certain particular interval. And these intervals, with a particular discussion in the next class, we'll call principal value branch. So we'll have the range of sine inverse x, cos inverse x, tan inverse x, etc., the respective principal value branches, and then to each value of x there will correspond only exactly one value of sine inverse x. For example, we'll find that the principal value branch for sine inverse x is minus pi by 2 to pi by 2. So sine inverse half can only be 30 degree or pi by 6. So this we'll discuss in the next class.